You hear it before you see it, a sound that doesn't belong. Not the hum of failing life support, or the groan of destiny's ancient hull buckling under another jump. This is different, a low, resonant pulse that makes your teeth ache and your chest tighten. The corridor lights flicker in rhythm with something you can't name. You're a scientist, trained to find patterns in chaos. But this pattern feels alive, wrong, like the ship itself just inhaled something. It was never designed to breathe. The alarm starts screaming 3 seconds later, and you're already running toward the source before anyone orders you to move. The observation deck is a disaster. Frost creeps across the viewport in crystalline webs, impossible given the environmental controls. Sparks rain from ceiling panels that were working perfectly an hour ago. And there, in the center of the room, is a crater. Not from an explosion, from a rival. The metal deck plating is warped inward, scorched at the edges with a pattern that looks almost organic. Steam rises from the impact point, carrying a scent you've never encountered before. Something between ozone and living wood, electric and ancient all at once. Your instruments are going haywire, energy readings spiking across spectrums that shouldn't exist. Colonel Young shoves past you, weapon raised, and that's when you see him. Small, impossibly small. 3 feet of wrinkled green skin wrapped in robes that look hand-woven, medieval, completely out of place among Destiny's sterile corridors. He sits at the crater's center, cross-legged, eyes closed. Not unconscious, meditating. You can see his chest rising and falling with perfect measured breaths. There's a weapon on his belt, a cylindrical handle that could be tech, could be ceremonial, you can't tell. But it's not the weapon that freezes everyone in place. It's the air around him. It ripples, like heat waves over desert sand, except the temperature hasn't changed. Your rational mind scrambles for explanations. Localized gravitational distortion, quantum field interference, hallucination from oxygen deprivation. None of them fit. Alive. This place is, the creature says without opening his eyes, and you nearly drop your scanner. His voice is ancient, not old ancient, like listening to mountains speak. Rough and weathered and carrying an authority that has nothing to do with size or strength, but hollow. He tilts his head, ears that are far too large for his skull swiveling toward sounds you can't hear. Echoes of greatness and ghosts of mistakes. Know this feeling, I do. Haunted by them, this ship is. The words hit you harder than they should, because he's right. Destiny is a tomb with failing life support, carrying the remnants of a crew that's lost more people than it's saved. How does he know that? Young's finger tightens on the trigger. Who are you? How did you get on my ship? The questions sound hollow even as he asks them. Because you all saw the energy readings. Whatever happened wasn't a transport beam or a ring platform. This wasn't technology you recognize. The creature opens his eyes finally, and you forget how to breathe. They're ancient, those eyes. Older than the ship, older than the ancients, maybe, filled with something that looks like sorrow and recognition all at once. Yoda, I am called, he says simply, and know how I came here. I do not. Pulled, I was. Across the dark, by something familiar and something broken. He stands slowly, leaning on a gnarled wooden stick that appeared in his hand without you seeing him reach for it. The air around him intensifies, that rippling effect spreading outward in slow waves. Your instruments scream. Eli stammers something about exotic energy fields, possibly quantum entanglement. But his voice trails off when Yoda turns those eyes on him. "The Force," the old master says quietly, and the word carries weight that makes the deck plates hum. "Feel it here, I do. Weak, wounded, but present." He takes 3 shuffling steps toward the viewport, where the Stargate sits dormant in Destiny's gate room 3 decks below. Ancient power you use, built by hands that understood the living energy of existence, but abandoned it. They did. Chose transcendence over balance, over responsibility. "I don't know what the hell you're talking about," Young says, but there's uncertainty in his voice now, because everyone on Destiny has felt it, that wrongness in the ancient technology, the way it seems half-finished, like its creators gave up partway through, like they found something better and walked away, leaving their greatest works to corrode into ghost ships. Yoda nods slowly, as if Young just confirmed something terrible. "Failed the Jedi did, in my galaxy. Saw not the darkness growing within themselves. But here," his voice drops to barely a whisper, and somehow you hear every word with perfect clarity. "Here, the wise ones failed before war even found them. Fled into enlightenment, leaving nothing but ruins and weapons for the desperate." The observation deck falls silent, except for the ambient hum of dying systems. Yoda turns back to face you all, and in his eyes you see something that makes your throat tighten. Recognition. Like he's seen this story before. Lived it. Failed at it. Stranded. "You are," he says with certainty, "fighting to survive in a ship built by gods who abandoned their responsibilities. Using weapons you do not understand. Walking paths they left behind. A crew haunted by impossible choices and mounting losses." His ears droop slightly. "Different. The Force feels here, broken or abandoned. But this," he gestures to all of you. "To Destiny. To the impossible situation you're trapped in. This I know, recognize. I do. The same mistake, made twice. Perhaps." His expression hardens into something ancient and determined. "Perhaps time it is to learn a different ending." The Stargate activates without warning. 3 decks below, the sound thunders through the hull, and you realize with creeping horror that whatever just arrived on your ship, the universe itself just noticed. The briefing room feels smaller with him in it. Yoda sits on a chair meant for humans, feet dangling inches above the floor, hands folded over that wooden walking stick. He looks absurd, a puppet from a children's story dropped into a ship that's killed 17 people in the last 6 months alone. But nobody's laughing, because the air still ripples around him in waves that make your eyes water if you stare too long. Because every instrument in the room fluctuates when he breathes. Because Colonel Young tried to confine him to quarters, and the door simply wouldn't close, not malfunctioning, refusing, like Destiny itself was taking sides. Eli's presentation is a mess of speculation and impossible data. "So working theory," he says, hands shaking slightly as he manipulates the holographic display. "The energy signature we detected wasn't a wormhole, wasn't a transport beam or spatial fold or anything in our physics database. It was." He pauses, looking at Yoda with something between awe and terror. "It was biological or consciousness-based, like reality, just decided he should be here and made it happen." The readings support this insanity, a burst of energy that originated from no source, violated conservation laws, and left behind quantum entanglement patterns that look disturbingly organic. Rush calls it pseudo-scientific garbage, But Rush also hasn't entered any room with Yoda in it since the arrival. Pulled, I was. Yoda confirms quietly, and the authority in his voice silences the murmuring. In meditation, deep, seeking guidance in the Force, answers to questions that haunted me for years, and felt something familiar, a call across the void, ancient power used with wisdom, or so I believed. His expression darkens. Wrong, I was. The power is ancient. Yes, the wisdom. He gestures vaguely at Destiny's walls, at the failing systems, at the desperate crew. The wisdom was abandoned long before you found this ship, left behind like discarded tools by builders who thought themselves beyond such things. You watch from the corner as the pieces come together in ways you don't want to accept. Yoda speaks of the Force like it's measurable, reproducible, real, an energy field that connects all living things, binds the universe together, allows those trained in its use to achieve impossible feats. It sounds like religion, like the ancient gene, except universal instead of genetic. Except your scanners keep detecting something around him. A field, a presence, something that interacts with matter on quantum levels, but responds to intention, to will, to something terrifyingly close to consciousness itself. In my galaxy, Yoda continues, the Jedi served as guardians, kept balance for 1,000 generations, until we failed, became arrogant, saw not the darkness growing within our own ranks. TJ interrupts, voice tight with the anger she's carried since losing her husband to this ship's cruelty. So you're what? A space wizard, and you just happen to meditate your way across galaxies into our laps. The skepticism is deserved, but Yoda doesn't bristle. He nods slowly, accepting the accusation. A master of the Force. I am, or was. Exile ended my service, mistakes ended my order, and across the void, something called to me, a resonance, like finding another who speaks your language in a foreign land. He looks directly at her, and his next words cut deep. Recognize that anger, I do, born of loss, of powerlessness, of watching others make decisions that doom the ones you love. Know it, I do, have felt it, let it consume me. I nearly did. The room falls silent, because he's right. Destiny's crew is held together by trauma and desperation. Military personnel who signed up for exploration, not survival horror. Scientists dragged through the Stargate against their will. Civilians who've watched friends die to extend their own lives by days or weeks. You've all felt that anger, that helplessness, the way this ship uses you up piece by piece and offers nothing back but more impossible choices. The ancients built this ship, Colonel Young says finally, voice carefully controlled. They built the Stargates, seeded the entire galaxy network. They were the most advanced civilization we've ever encountered. And you're saying they, what? Gave up? Yoda's ears droop, and for a moment he looks impossibly old, tired in a way that has nothing to do with physical exhaustion. Ascended, they did. Your records show this. Yes, became beings of pure energy, transcended physical form, achieved enlightenment. The words should sound positive. They sound like an epitaph. The Jedi sought enlightenment too, through balance, through service, through understanding that power without responsibility is corruption waiting to happen. But the ancients, he gestures at the ship around you, at the Stargate 3 decks below. They built wonders, achieved transcendence, and abandoned everything they built, left weapons for lesser races to find, left ships with purposes unfulfilled, chose personal enlightenment over the galaxies they could have guided. Eli's voice cracks when he speaks. You're saying ascension is bad. They became energy beings. They evolved beyond physical limitations. That's the dream. That's what we're trying to understand. To reach. He trails off because Yoda is shaking his head. Evolution without compassion is extinction with extra steps, the old master says flatly. The ancients ascended alone, left behind no teachers, no traditions, no wisdom to guide those who would find their tools. Only ruins, only weapons, only ships like this one, carrying desperate souls through the dark, following paths carved by gods who stopped caring about the destination. The accusation hangs in the recycled air, because it's true. The ancients left behind technology without instruction manuals, power without wisdom, and everyone who's found it since has paid the price in blood. You find your voice before you mean to. Can you help us? The question sounds small, childish, but it's the only one that matters. Destiny is failing. The crew is dying slowly. You're light years from home, with no way back and no way forward, except the path. Ancient hands carved into the universe and then abandoned. If this impossible creature has answers, if the force he speaks of is real, maybe there's hope. Maybe there's a way out that doesn't end with everyone dead in the dark. Yoda meets your eyes, and what you see there isn't reassurance. It's recognition and pity. Help you. I can try, he says slowly, but understand, you must. The force here is different, thin, like breath in vacuum. My galaxy is alive with it, connected. Every star, every world, every living thing bound together in a web of energy. Here, he closes his eyes, and you watch his brow furrow in concentration. The air around him intensifies. Your instruments spike, and then he exhales, deflating slightly. Here, the force is fragmented, wounded by the ancients' departure. They were connected to it, even if they did not call it by that name. And when they ascended, they tore holes in the fabric, left scars. He opens his eyes, and they're haunted. To heal this ship, must heal a galaxy. To save this crew, must teach what the ancients refused to learn. That power without balance is damnation. That transcendence without responsibility is just abandonment. The Stargate activates again. The thunder of it rattles through Destiny's bones, and this time, something comes through. You're halfway to the gate room, when the first explosion rocks the corridor. Not weapons fire, not a hull breach. This is different, controlled, precise, the kind of destruction that comes from machines programmed to kill efficiently. The drones, ancient automated defense weapons that have haunted Destiny since you arrived. Sphere-shaped nightmares that phase through walls, regenerate damage, and eliminate threats with plasma fire, hot enough to vaporize bone. They've killed 8 crew members in 3 encounters, and now they're inside the ship again, hunting. The alarms scream a harmony with your pulse as you sprint toward the gate room, knowing you're running toward death but unable to stop. The scene is chaos. 5 drones circle the Stargate like predatory fish, their weapons primed and glowing. Greer and his security team are pinned behind cover, returning fire that splashes uselessly against energy shields. One drone spots you, rotates with mechanical precision, and you watch the weapon port iris open. Death looks surprisingly clean from this angle. Just light and heat, and then nothing. You don't have time to scream, don't have time to dive for cover. The plasma bolt launches, and you're already calculating how much of you will be left for the furnace. When something impossible happens, the bolt stops mid-air, 3 feet from your chest. It hangs there, suspended in space, a sphere of superheated plasma rotating slowly like a miniature sun. You can feel the heat on your face, can smell your hair singing, but it doesn't touch you. Behind you, Yoda stands with one hand raised, fingers spread, expression perfectly calm, dangerous. These are, he observes, and his voice carries that same mountain ancient authority. But understand combat I do. Faced worse I have. Fought wars that consumed galaxies, and learned. The plasma bolt reverses direction, accelerates, slams back into the drone that fired it with twice the velocity. The machine explodes in a shower of sparking components. That wisdom in battle is knowing when to deflect and when to redirect. The remaining 4 drones reassess. You can see it in their movements, the way they pause and recalculate. These are weapons built by the ancients, programmed with tactical algorithms millions of years old. They've never encountered anything like Yoda, never faced an enemy who manipulates energy without technology. The drones spread out, establishing crossfire positions, and unleash coordinated fire. 20 plasma bolts converge on the old master from 4 angles simultaneously. It should be instant death. It's beautiful instead. Yoda doesn't move his feet, just rotates his hand in a smooth circular motion, and the air around him becomes a vortex. The plasma bolts curve, spiral, orbit him like electrons around a nucleus before launching back at their sources with surgical precision. 3 drones die in synchronized explosions. The 4th adapts, phases through the deck, tries to attack from below. You feel the ship shudder as it burrows through multiple levels, flanking for a kill shot that can't be deflected. Greer screams a warning. The drone emerges from the ceiling directly above Yoda. Point-blank range, no time to react. The plasma bolt fires, and Yoda simply raises his walking stick. The wooden staff, ancient gnarled, should be ashes in that heat, intercepts the bolt, absorbs it, glows for a moment with inner light. Then Yoda swings the stick in a short, sharp arc, and the drone crumples, not destroyed, crushed by invisible hands that grip it from all sides and compress it into a sphere of twisted metal, no bigger than your fist. The gate room falls silent, except for sparking electronics and your ragged breathing. Yoda lowers his hand, leans on his stick, and suddenly looks every one of his centuries. Wasteful, he mutters. Machines of such sophistication, used only for killing. The ancients could have built protectors, teachers, guides. Instead, they built weapons and walked away, left their wars for you to inherit. He turns to face the still active Stargate, and his expression hardens. And still they watch, still they test, sending death through the gate to see who is worthy, who is strong enough to earn their abandoned scraps. Colonel Young steps out from cover, weapon still raised, face pale. What the hell are you? The question sounds rhetorical. Yoda answers anyway. A relic, he says quietly, from a galaxy that made the same mistakes as this one. The Jedi built temples, trained warriors, wielded power we called noble, and failed to see we had become what we fought against. Defenders who required constant war to justify our existence. Peacekeepers who forgot how to make peace. He gestures at the crushed drone, at the scorch marks on the walls, at the terrified crew. These machines were built to defend, but defend what? The ancients were gone, so the machines continued, following programming without purpose, like Jedi following tradition without understanding. TJ pushes through the crowd, medical kit
checking you for injuries you didn't receive. Her hands shake as she runs the scanner over your chest where the plasma bolt should have hit. "He saved you," she says, and it sounds like an accusation, like she's angry you survived, or angry that it took a space wizard to make it happen, or angry that after everything the ship has taken from everyone, random luck and impossible power are the only things keeping you alive. You understand the feeling. Every day on Destiny is a reminder that survival is arbitrary, that death takes who it wants, and you're only still breathing because you haven't been chosen yet. Yoda approaches the Stargate, studying it with an intensity that makes your instruments spike again. A doorway, he muses, built by those who understood the Force, even if they never named it. Wormholes through space-time, yes, but also connections, threads in the web, each gate a node in a network that spans galaxies. He reaches out one hand, not quite touching the shimmering event horizon. "Feel it. I can." The echo of intention. The ancients built this to explore, to learn, to connect distant worlds. A noble purpose. His hand drops, but they built the drones too, the weapons, the automated defenses, built war into their peace. Balance they never learned, control they never released. The Stargate shuts down. The sudden silence is oppressive. Yoda turns back to face you all, and his expression carries weight that makes you want to look away. "A choice before you lies," he says, and every word feels carved in stone. "Continue as you have. Use ancient tools."
Without understanding them, fight battles they programmed into reality, follow paths they carved, leading to destinations they deemed worthy, or he plants his stick firmly on the deck. Learn. Choose wisdom over power, balance over control. Accept that the ancients were mighty, but wrong, that their transcendence was not evolution, but escape, that you, stranded and desperate, might succeed where they failed. Not by becoming stronger, but by becoming wiser. The lights flicker. Life support groans. Destiny continues its slow death march through the void, and you realize that Yoda isn't offering salvation. He's offering education, the kind that only comes through painful recognition of uncomfortable truths. The drones are gone, but the danger hasn't passed. It's just changed shape, become something harder to fight. The realization that you've been worshipping the wrong gods, following the wrong prophets, that the ancients you've been chasing through the stars might be the worst possible teachers, and this small green refugee from another galaxy might be the only one who understands why that matters. The question is whether anyone will listen before Destiny claims its next victim. 3 days pass. Destiny continues its programmed route through dead systems and forgotten worlds. The crew divides cleanly into camps. Those who want to learn from Yoda, those who want to use him, and those who want him off the ship entirely. You find yourself in the first camp, though you're not sure why. Maybe because you saw him stop death with a gesture. Maybe because his words about wisdom and failure echo too loudly in your skull. Maybe because after 17 months of watching this ship consume everyone aboard, the idea that there might be answers beyond ancient arrogance is the first hope you've felt in weeks. Yoda spends most of his time in the ancient database chamber, surrounded by holographic star maps and fragments of Lantean history. You watch from the doorway as he studies their records with an expression that cycles between fascination and profound sadness. "Remarkable," he murmurs, manipulating displays with casual waves of his hand. The technology responds to him the same way it responds to those carrying the ancient gene, except Yoda has no genetic markers, no biological compatibility. The systems simply obey, like they recognize something in him that transcends DNA. Built the gates in the image of natural wormholes they did, studied the fabric of space until they could weave it like cloth. Magnificent achievement. But then his expression darkens, and here, he says, pulling up schematics of automated weapons platforms. Here they built death, seeded it across galaxies, programmed it to protect. What? Ruins? Empty worlds? Pride? You step closer, watching databases scroll past in languages that shouldn't be comprehensible, but somehow are when Yoda touches them. The ancient language transforms, not translating, but revealing, like he's reading the intention behind the words, rather than the words themselves. Fear, he concludes. Everything they built in their later years reeks of it. Fear of the Wraith, fear of lesser races, fear that their enlightenment would be corrupted by the unworthy. Rush appears in the doorway, looking haggard. He hasn't slept since Yoda arrived, too obsessed with the possibility of understanding the Force, of quantifying it, of harnessing it. You keep saying they failed, Rush says without preamble. But they ascended. They achieved evolutionary transcendence. They became gods. How is that failure? Yoda doesn't look up from the database. Gods who abandon their creations are not gods, he says flatly. They are cowards with power. The Jedi faced a similar temptation, to retreat, to hide, to preserve our wisdom by withdrawing from the galaxy when darkness rose. Some argued for it, insisted that protecting ourselves was the highest duty, and Rush presses. You can hear the hunger in his voice, the desperate need for answers that might make sense of ancient behavior, that might justify the hell destiny has become. Yoda finally turns, and his gaze pins Rush like an insect under glass. And we chose service. For 1,000 years, we chose service, placed ourselves between darkness and light, fought wars, made mistakes, got people killed, destroyed worlds trying to save them, until finally, we became so afraid of falling to darkness that we became rigid, dogmatic, blind to the Sith, growing within our own ranks. Different path, same destination. The ancients fled, the Jedi fought. Both failed because both refused balance. The chamber falls silent, except for the ambient hum of ancient technology. You watch Rush process this. See his mind racing through implications and possibilities. He wants to argue, wants to defend the ancients because if they were wrong, then everything he's done in their name, every sacrifice, every brutal choice, every person left behind, becomes meaningless. Balance, Rush finally says, and the word tastes bitter in his mouth. You keep using that word. What does it mean? How does one balance between survival and death, between knowledge and ignorance, between ascending to a higher plane and rotting in meat bodies on a dying ship? Yoda's ears droop. The wrong questions you ask. Balance is not compromise between extremes, is understanding that extremes are illusions. The Force flows through all things, light and dark, life and death, order and chaos, not opposites, components of one truth. The ancients saw the choice as transcendence or mortality, never saw the third path, living with purpose, remaining present, using power to serve rather than escape. He gestures at the star map, at billions of worlds the ancients connected through gates and then abandoned. This galaxy is their legacy, beauty and horror, hand in hand. They built wonders. They also built weapons, built connections, built isolation. And when the weight of it became too heavy, they left, called it enlightenment, was abandonment. Eli joins the conversation from the back of the room, where he's been silently recording everything.
But the Force, he says hesitantly, you said it's wounded here, fragmented. If the ancients were connected to it, and they ascended, did they damage it by leaving? Yoda nods slowly, and you see approval in his ancient eyes. Correct, young one is. The Force connects all living things. In my galaxy, it flows strong because beings remain. Live, die, cycle continues. Here, he pulls up a display showing gate addresses, millions of them, spanning multiple galaxies. Here, the ancients seeded life, guided evolution, shaped worlds in their image, made themselves fundamental to this reality's force structure, then ascended, tore themselves out of the web, left holes. The implications hit you like a physical blow. You're saying the ancients broke this universe when they left. Yoda's silence is confirmation enough. You think about the Wraith, the Replicators, the Ori. Every nightmare this galaxy has spawned since the ancients departed. Every war, every atrocity. Wounds fester, Yoda says quietly. Without the ancients to maintain balance, the Force here twisted, became unstable, aggressive. The Wraith are not an accident, are a symptom. Life, feeding on life, endlessly consuming. The shadow of what the ancients became. Creatures who fed on the galaxy's potential and gave nothing back. TJ's voice cuts through from the doorway, sharp with anger. So what are we supposed to do with that information? Hate the ancients, stop using their technology, let the ship fail because its creators were hypocrites. She's shaking. You can see the barely controlled rage that's kept her functional since her husband died. We don't have the luxury of philosophy. People are dying. Systems are failing. Every day is a war for survival. And you're lecturing us about balance like it's a choice we can afford to make. The outburst echoes in the chamber. No one moves. No one speaks. Yoda meets her fury with calm that feels both compassionate and immovable. Afford balance. You cannot avoid, he says gently, already making the choice. You are. Use ancient tools their way and inherit ancient fate. Chase their ascension and leave behind same devastation they did. Or choose differently. Use the tools with wisdom, with purpose, with recognition that power serves the wielder's intent. Save this ship, not by following its programming, but by understanding what it was meant to be. A vessel of discovery, not a tomb, not a test. A ship that goes home, because its crew learns what the ancients never did. That strength without compassion is just another form of death. The database chamber's lights flicker. Somewhere in the ship's depths, another system fails. Life support groans under the strain of keeping you all breathing, and you realize Yoda isn't offering solutions. He's offering perspective, the kind that makes every choice harder, because now you understand the weight behind it. The ancients weren't gods. They were failures with good marketing, and their legacy is a galaxy full of weapons and wonders, wielded by desperate people who never learned the difference. The question isn't whether you'll survive, it's whether survival at any cost is worth the price, whether becoming like the ancients, powerful, transcendent, and utterly alone, is really victory at all. Colonel Young appears in the doorway, face grim. We've got a problem. Long-range sensors picked up a ship, ancient design. It's following us through FTL, and it's powering weapons. The control room pulses with red emergency lighting. On the main display, the pursuing vessel rotates in 3 dimensions. Ancient warship, twice Destiny size, bristling with weapon emplacements that could reduce your ship to vapor in seconds. It shouldn't exist. The ancients
haven't maintained an active fleet in 10,000 years. Every warship encountered so far has been derelict, automated or controlled by other species, harvesting ancient technology. This one is different. You can see power signatures consistent with conscious control, with intent, with something or someone at the helm making tactical decisions. The ship adjusts course to match Destiny's evasive maneuvers with precision. That speaks of intelligence, not programming. Hail them, young orders. Eli's fingers dance across the console, sending standard first contact protocols across every frequency the ancients ever used. Static. The warship doesn't respond, doesn't slow, just maintains pursuit distance. Weapons hot, like a predator sizing up prey before the killing strike. Maybe they can't communicate, Eli suggests weakly. Maybe the communications array is damaged, or they don't recognize our. The display flares. Every screen in the control room fills with the same image simultaneously. A face. Humanoid. Features too perfect to be entirely real. Skin that seems to glow with internal light. Eyes that hold no warmth, no curiosity, no emotion except cold assessment. Vessel destiny, the being says, and the voice resonates through the hull itself, bypassing speakers entirely. You carry contamination. Foreign consciousness incompatible with ancient legacy protocols. Submit to cleansing or be destroyed. The transmission cuts. The warship's weapons power to full charge. You have maybe 30 seconds before they fire. Young starts barking orders. Evasive patterns, shield distribution. Prepare to drop from FTL. But you're not listening. Because you're watching Yoda. The old master stands at the viewport, one hand pressed against the transparent aluminum, expression unreadable. The air around him has gone perfectly still, not calm, frozen, like reality itself is holding its breath. Ascended, they claim to be. Yoda says quietly, and his voice carries over the chaos. But remain concerned with purity, with contamination, with controlling who deserves their legacy. He turns from the viewport, and his eyes hold something you haven't seen before. Not anger, disappointment, so profound it feels like watching mountains grieve. Enlightenment that requires cleansing the unworthy is not enlightenment, is just supremacy with prettier words. The Jedi fell to this trap, believed ourselves guardians of peace, became judges of who deserved peace. The ancients achieved transcendence, but cannot release their attachment to material concerns, to power, to pride. The warship fires, a lance of golden energy that turns space itself translucent along its path. Destiny's shields catch it, and the ship shudders like it's been hit by a moon. Lights throughout the vessel flicker and die. Backup systems strain under load. The shields hold but barely. The next shot will punch through, will core Destiny from bow to stern, will kill everyone aboard in the time it takes to scream. Young opens his mouth to give the order. Abandon ship, use the gate, evacuate while there's still time. But Yoda raises one hand. Wait, he says, and something in his tone makes everyone freeze. The old master closes his eyes. You watch his chest rise and fall with deep, measured breaths. The frozen air around him begins to move again, but differently now. Not wind, not pressure. Something else. The Force, you realize. He's pulling it from everywhere. From the crew, from Destiny's dying systems, from the void between stars, from the warship itself, gathering it, focusing it. Your instruments scream with readings. They weren't designed to register. Energy signatures that spike across spectrums from infrared to gamma. Space around destiny ripples like water disturbed by something rising from the depths. And then Yoda opens his eyes. They glow, faintly, the same way the ancient being's eyes glowed, except different, warmer, alive. "See me you will," Yoda says, and his voice carries across the void, through the vacuum, through shields and hulls and the dimensional barriers between real world and subspace. You feel the words in your chest, in your bones. The ancient warship halts mid-maneuver, its weapons power down. On every screen, the perfect face returns, but this time the expression has changed. Uncertainty, something that might be fear, impossible. The ancient whispers, the signature you carry traces of how. Yoda doesn't answer immediately, just stands there, a 3-foot-tall testament to something older than ancient arrogance. When he speaks, each word lands with weight that makes reality flex. From another galaxy, I come, where the force flows strong and true, where those who achieve enlightenment do not abandon their responsibilities, do not build weapons and call it wisdom, do not judge who deserves their legacy, while hoarding knowledge like frightened children, hoarding toys. The ancient's face tightens. You can see rage building behind those glowing eyes. Rage at being challenged, at being compared to children, at this foreign presence that refuses to recognize ancient supremacy. "You dare," the being begins. Yoda cuts it off with a gesture that makes the warship's lights flicker. His voice drops to barely a whisper that somehow echoes through the control room. "I have lived 900 years, trained Jedi for 8 centuries, watched my order fall because we believed ourselves above failure, watched my galaxy burn because we chose dogma over wisdom. And you, young one," the word drips with irony, "you speak to me of daring." The warship's weapons remain dark. The ancient stares at Yoda with an expression that cycles through shock, fury, and something that might be recognition. "You understand," it says finally, an accusation. "You see what we became, what transcendence costs, what we left behind." Yoda nods slowly. "See it, I do, and grieve for it. The ancients were magnificent. Your work spanned galaxies. Your knowledge reshaped reality itself. Could have been the greatest teachers the universe ever knew. Could have guided younger races toward wisdom. Instead chose elevation, chose purity, chose to escape the weight of your own legacy. And now, he gestures at destiny, at the desperate crew, at the dying ship held together by determination and luck. Now your children inherit the ruins. Fight with your weapons, die in your ships, chase your ascension thinking it's salvation, never knowing it is prison. The silence stretches. You watch the ancient's face process this, see emotions flicker across features too perfect to fully express them. When it speaks again, the voice has changed, softer, weighted with something that might be shame. "What would you have us do? Return, unmake our ascension? We cannot. The path forward has no reverse. We can only observe, only intervene when contamination threatens what remains of our legacy. Only it stops, looks at destiny, at Yoda, at the impossible crossroads this moment represents. Only perpetuate our mistakes." Yoda finishes gently. "Only maintain the systems that ensure others fail as you did. Only guard a legacy built on abandonment." The warship's weapons stay dark, but it doesn't leave.
doesn't attack, just hangs there in the void, a monument to power without purpose. And you realize you're watching something unprecedented, an ascended ancient being confronted by its own failure, forced to see itself through the eyes of someone who survived the same fall. The being's face hardens into something that might be resolve, might be despair. "We will not fire," it says finally, "but we will watch." This contamination you represent, this force, it should not exist here, should not be possible. That it is, means the damage we caused runs deeper than we understood, deeper than we could face. The transmission cuts. The warship rotates, and then it's gone, vanishing into FTL, leaving Destiny alone in the dark once more. The control room erupts in relief and confusion, people talking over each other, demanding explanations, celebrating survival. But you're watching Yoda. The old master hasn't moved from the viewport. His glow has faded. His shoulders sag with exhaustion that looks like it could crush him. When he finally speaks, it's barely audible over the chaos. 1-0. We have bought time, nothing more. The ancients will watch now, will judge, will decide if teaching this crew wisdom is contamination or redemption. And when they decide, he doesn't finish, doesn't need to. You understand. The next encounter won't end with words. It will end with choices that determine whether Destiny becomes a symbol of hope or another cautionary tale about reaching for power beyond wisdom's grasp. The galaxy isn't done testing you. It's only just begun. 4 days. That's how long the reprieve lasts. 4 days of Yoda moving through Destiny like a ghost, teaching anyone willing to listen. Not about the force that takes years to understand, lifetimes to master. Instead, he teaches awareness, how to feel the ship around you, how to sense when systems are failing before the alarms scream, how to recognize the difference between reacting and responding. Small lessons, practical ones, the kind that don't require mystical power, just attention and practice. You watch him in the mess hall, showing Greer how to remain calm under pressure by breathing with intention. In the hydroponics bay, guiding Park through meditation that helps her see problems before they cascade into disasters. In engineering, sitting cross-legged beside Rush while they argue about consciousness and reality until dawn. The changes are subtle but real. Fewer arguments, more coordination. People taking moments to breathe before making critical decisions. It's not magic. It's just awareness applied consistently. The kind of thing that should be obvious but never is when you're fighting for survival every waking moment. Yoda calls it the first lesson of balance, recognizing that action without reflection is just chaos with momentum. That power without pause is just destruction wearing purpose like a mask. Some crew members resist. Call it mysticism. Call it a waste of time. They want solutions, not philosophy. Want the Force itself, not breathing exercises and meditation. Yoda doesn't argue with them, just nods sadly, and continues teaching those willing to learn.
You find him one evening in the observation deck, staring out at the stars streaming past in FTL.
The view is hypnotic.
Infinite points of light smearing into lines, galaxies reduced to brushstrokes on reality's canvas. Yoda looks small against that vastness, tired in a way that transcends physical exhaustion. When he senses your presence, he doesn't turn, just speaks into the void. In my galaxy, trained Padawans from childhood, we did decades to master the basics, lifetimes to achieve mastery. Here, Days I have, maybe weeks before the ancients return with judgment. Teaching wisdom in days. He finally looks at you, and his eyes hold ancient frustration. Like teaching mathematics by describing the beauty of equations. True, but insufficient. Then why try? The question comes out harsher than intended. You're exhausted too, tired of impossible situations and Pyrrhic victories, tired of this ship consuming people and offering nothing back, tired of hope being dangled and snatched away. Why teach us anything if it's insufficient? Why not just fix it? You can stop plasma bolts, crush drones, make ancients back down. Why not just take control? Fly this ship yourself. Get us home through sheer force of will. The words hang between you, and you realize you've just vocalized what half the crew is thinking. That Yoda has power but won't use it. That he's withholding the easy answer out of principle, while people die from the hard questions. Yoda sighs, and the sound carries weight that makes your chest ache. Ask that question my own Padawans did, when war came, when the galaxy burned, when using power could have ended conflicts in moments, and explained, I did, what they could not yet understand, that power used is power lost, that the easy path leads to dependency, that saving someone teaches them only that they need saving. He gestures at destiny, at the crew, at the impossible situation you're all trapped in. Fix this ship, I could try, maybe succeed. Get you home through force alone, and teach you nothing. Leave you dependent, unable to face the next crisis without me. Make you children of yet another absent master. The observation deck falls silent except for the subtle vibration of FTL engines. You process his words, turning them over in your mind, testing them for flaws, finding none, hating them anyway. So we're supposed to learn wisdom while dying. That's the lesson. Enlightenment through suffering. Yoda shakes his head firmly. Suffering teaches nothing but fear. Pain avoided teaches nothing but avoidance. What teaches wisdom is choice made with full awareness of consequence. Is power held with understanding of its weight? Is strength used to serve rather than dominate? He meets your eyes directly, and you feel pinned by that gaze. Survivors you already are. Destiny has proven that. The question is, what kind of survivors will you become? The kind who survived by any means, abandoning principle for expedience, or the kind who survived by learning that wisdom and strength are not opposites, but components of true power. TJ enters the observation deck, medical scanner in hand. She's been monitoring Yoda obsessively since the ancient encounter, convinced his power expenditure should have killed him, that the readings she's getting are impossible, that he's somehow burning through his own life force with every demonstration of the Force. She doesn't announce herself, just stands in the doorway, scanner active, adding to her accumulating data. Yoda acknowledges her with a slight nod, but doesn't stop her. Dying, she thinks I am, he says without turning. Correct, she is, not from Force usage, from age, from wounds taken in wars long past, from the weight of failures that cannot be undone. 900 years is long, even for my species, longer still when filled with regrets. Then why waste your time on us? TJ's voice cuts like scalpel through flesh, clinical, precise, brutal. If you're dying anyway, why spend your last days teaching a doomed crew on a failing ship? Why not find peace, ascend like the ancients, escape this mess, and achieve whatever enlightenment you Jedi believe in? The questions aren't rhetorical. She genuinely wants to know, needs to know, because she's watching her own death approach with every system failure, every supply shortage, every day. Destiny continues its march through the void, And if Yoda, powerful, wise, ancient Yoda, chooses to spend his dying days here, there must be a reason, a justification, something that makes suffering meaningful instead of arbitrary. Yoda turns to face her fully, and his expression holds such profound compassion that you see TJ's armor crack. Because someone must, he says simply, must stand witness to suffering and not look away, must offer wisdom even when wisdom is rejected, must teach even when teaching feels futile. The Jedi failed because we stopped doing this, stopped engaging, stopped making ourselves vulnerable to the pain of the galaxy we claim to serve. The ancients failed because they never started, never allowed themselves to be diminished by service, never recognized that true power is not domination or transcendence, is presence, is showing up, is choosing every day to bear witness and offer what you can. The scanner in TJ's hand slips. She catches it, but her hands shake. You realize she's crying, not loudly, not dramatically, just silent tears tracking down her face while she stares at this impossible creature who chose to die, helping strangers instead of pursuing his own salvation. My husband, she says, and her voice breaks on the words. He died fixing a coolant leak, could have let someone else do it, could have delegated, could have survived, but he chose to go because he was the best qualified, because it mattered, because someone had to. She looks at Yoda with raw grief, and I hated him for it. Hated that he chose duty over me, hated this ship for taking him, hated myself for being angry at a dead man who died being exactly who he was. Yoda approaches slowly, walking stick tapping against deck plates. When he reaches TJ, he places one small hand on her arm. The contact is gentle, paternal. Hate yourself not, he says firmly. Anger at loss is love with nowhere to go. Your husband chose service, chose to be present when needed, died as he lived, showing up. Honor that not by hating the choice. Honor it by understanding the choice, by carrying forward the lesson that some things matter more than survival. That legacy is not what we take from the world, but what we leave behind in others. He squeezes her arm once. Teach you that destiny will, if willing to learn you are. The ship shudders, a different vibration. Wrong. You feel it in your gut before the alarms confirm it. Destiny is dropping from FTL, unscheduled, system failure, or external interference. You can't tell which. The lights flicker, emergency protocols engage, and through the viewport you watch reality snap back into normal space. A planet hangs before you, blue and green, and achingly beautiful, habitable, impossible, not on any ancient charts. Destiny shouldn't have stopped here, shouldn't even be in this system, but the ship's trajectory has changed, course corrected, not by crew input, by something else. And on the sensors, you detect structures, ancient structures, a facility on the planet's surface, active, waiting. The ancient's judgment has arrived. The planet's designation comes back empty from the database. No records, no previous exploration, no reason. Destiny should have been pulled from its programmed course to orbit this unmarked world. Except the facility on the surface tells a different story. Massive, kilometers across, architecture that matches ancient aesthetic but feels older somehow. Primal, like the difference between a cathedral and the cave paintings that inspired it. The structure pulses with energy signatures that make your instruments weep. Not technology, not entirely. Something that bridges the gap between machine and consciousness, between matter and force. Yoda stands at the viewport, and for the first time since he arrived, you see something that might be fear in his eyes. A testing ground, he murmurs, built before the ancients ascended.
when still they debated the path forward, when factions existed, those who wanted transcendence, and those who believed in remaining, in continuing to serve. His hand trembles slightly on his walking stick. The debate was settled. The Transcendence faction won, but the facilities remained, places where Ascension candidates were judged, tested for worthiness, for purity of purpose. He turns to face the assembled crew, and his expression is grave, never meant for the living. These places were meant for those seeking to shed their bodies, to prove they had released all attachments, all fears, all doubts, a crucible of the soul. Colonel Young's jaw tightens, and now we're here. Why, what do they want? The answer comes not from Yoda but from the facility itself. Every screen in the control room blazes white. The same ancient face from before materializes, but different this time. Older, features less perfect, more worn. Like Ascension has a cost that shows in the eyes even when the body is pure energy. Crew of Destiny, the being says, and its voice resonates with harmonics that make your teeth ache. You have been guided here for evaluation. The contamination aboard your vessel presents existential questions. Can foreign wisdom integrate with ancient legacy? Can power from beyond this reality coexist with our design? Can those who inherited our tools prove worthy of them? We don't need your approval. Rush spits, and you can hear decades of resentment in his voice. We've survived despite you, despite your abandoned toys and your half-finished experiments, despite inheriting a galaxy you broke and walked away from. We don't owe you explanations or demonstrations, or the Ancient's expression doesn't change, but the ship shudders, not violently, gently, like a parent's hand on a tantruming child. You misunderstand, it says. This is not about permission. This is about consequences. The force your guest wields, this Yoda, it interacts with our technology in ways that could destabilize the entire gate network, could unravel systems we built across multiple galaxies. Already we detect
fluctuations, resonances. The web we wove is beginning to vibrate with frequencies it was never designed to carry. Yoda steps forward, and the Ancient's attention snaps to him with an intensity that makes the air crackle, destabilize. My presence does not, Yoda says calmly, reveals, shows the cracks you left when you abandoned physical form. The Force here is wounded because you tore yourselves from it. Now a master from a galaxy where the Force flows true has arrived, and your broken systems respond. Not with malfunction, with recognition, with hunger for what was lost. His ears flatten against his skull. Uncomfortable truth, that is, that your great work is incomplete, that your ascension was escape dressed as evolution, that even now you cannot release control, cannot allow others to walk paths you deemed unworthy. The silence that follows is oppressive. You watch the Ancient's face cycle through micro-expressions, rage, denial, shame, and something that might be desperation. You will undergo the trials, it says finally. You, Yoda of the Foreign Force, and representatives of the Destiny crew. 3 trials, 3 tests of wisdom versus power, balance versus control, service versus transcendence. Pass, and we will allow your teachings to continue. Fail, and we will seal the contamination. Preserve the purity of our legacy. The trial begins when you enter the facility. The transmission cuts. The planet below seems to pulse, like a heartbeat or a countdown. And you realize the Ancients aren't offering a choice. They're delivering an ultimatum. Yoda doesn't hesitate. Go, I will. Face these trials. Prove to the Ancients what they refuse to see in themselves. That wisdom is not purity, is not perfection, is accepting imperfection and choosing service anyway. He looks at Young, at Rush, at TJ, at you, but alone. I cannot go. Need witnesses, the trials will. Need those who understand what is at stake, who represent the inheritors of ancient legacy, who can speak to whether teaching is contamination or salvation. His gaze settles on you with weight that makes your knees weak. Come with me, will you, into the crucible, to stand witness to judgment. Your mouth is dry. You want to refuse, want to let someone else take this burden, want to hide in destiny's corridors and pray the ancients forget you exist. But you think about what Yoda taught, about presence, about showing up, even when it's terrifying, about the difference between surviving by hiding and surviving by choosing to face the weight of impossible decisions. Your voice doesn't sound like your own when you speak. I'll go. TJ steps forward. Me too. Eli joins, hands shaking but jaw set. Someone needs to document this. For the others, Greer moves to Eli's side, weapon ready. Someone needs to keep you all alive while you're being philosophical. Young doesn't volunteer, just looks at his crew, the ones willing to walk into ancient judgment for the slim chance it might save the rest, and nods. Bring them back, he says to Yoda. It sounds like a plea, like a prayer. The facility's transporters engage without warning. One moment you're in Destiny's control room. The next, you're standing in a chamber so vast it has its own weather. Clouds form near the ceiling. The walls glow with script that writhes like living things. The floor is transparent, revealing machinery beneath that seems to extend infinitely downward. And in the center of it all, suspended in midair, is a sphere, perfectly smooth, radiating light that shifts through spectrums your eyes weren't designed to see. Around the sphere, 3 doors, each one marked with ancient script that translates itself in your mind. Power, wisdom, transcendence. The ancient's voice echoes through the chamber without a visible sword. The first trial is power. Enter and face what you fear most. Overcome it and prove your strength. Fail and remain trapped in your fear forever. Yoda approaches the first door marked power, and it opens like a mouth. Beyond it, darkness, not absence of light, active darkness, the kind that devours photons and hope with equal hunger. Faced my fears, I have, Yoda says, and his voice is smaller now, older, many times, in war, in exile, in the moment the Jedi fell. Know what waits beyond this door. I do. My greatest failure, my deepest regret, the moment I could have saved everything and chose wrong. He looks back at you, at the others, and for the first time you see the 900 years of pain in his eyes, without any mask hiding it. Watch, you will, learn, you must, because the trial is not about defeating fear, is about accepting it, living with it, choosing service despite it. He steps through the door. It closes behind him with a sound like finality, and through the transparent walls, you see it, a vision, a memory. Yoda standing before a young man with darkness in his eyes and a lightsaber in his hand. You don't know the names, don't know the context, but you understand the moment, the choice, the fork in reality where everything could have been different. You watch Yoda, in the vision, speak words of tradition, of Jedi code, of patience and trust in the Council. Watch the young man's face harden. Watch him leave. Watch Yoda remain behind, choosing order over intervention, choosing the safe path over the right one. And you watch the consequences cascade, war, betrayal, the fall of everything Yoda spent centuries building. The old master in the chamber with you doesn't move, just watches his greatest mistake play out again, forced to witness the moment he chose wrong,
powerless to change it. The vision reaches its climax. The young man becomes a monster. The Jedi temple burns, children die, and Yoda stands alone in the ruins, realizing too late that power, without wisdom to wield it, is just permission for destruction. The sphere in the chamber's center pulses. The ancient's voice returns. You had power to prevent this, to stop the darkness before it consumed your order. Why did you not act? Yoda's answer comes quiet but firm. Because feared the power. I did. Feared what it would make me, what it would cost. Chose safety over courage. Chose tradition over truth. And learned, his voice breaks, that the safe choice is often the wrong one. That power, unused from fear, is just another form of failure. The door opens. Yoda emerges, and he looks diminished, smaller, but somehow more solid, more present. The first trial is complete. 2 remain. The chamber shifts. The transparent floor ripples like water, disturbed by something moving beneath. The clouds near the ceiling darken, pregnant with storms that will never break. The central sphere dims and brightens in rhythm with your heartbeat, and you realize it's not mimicking you, it's connected to you. You are reading you, measuring something deeper than vitals or brain waves. The second door, marked wisdom, begins to glow, not inviting, warning, like a sign at the edge of an abyss telling you exactly what waits if you step forward. The ancient's voice returns, but different now. Multiple voices overlapping. A chorus of the ascended, speaking in dissonant harmony that makes your skull ache. The second trial is wisdom. They intone. Knowledge is not wisdom. Power is not wisdom. Wisdom is choosing correctly when all choices lead to suffering, when every path ends in loss, when the only difference is which pain you're willing to bear and who will pay the price. The door swings open, revealing not darkness this time, but light, blinding, surgical light that strips away shadows and secrets with equal efficiency. Yoda approaches slowly, each step deliberate. His walking stick taps against crystal floor with sounds that echo like heartbeats. He pauses at the threshold, and when he speaks, his voice carries exhaustion that goes beyond physical limits. This trial, harder than the first, because power's failure is past, finished, can learn from it, but cannot change it. Wisdom's trial is present, active, forces choice in real time. He steps through. The door remains open this time. You can see inside. The chamber beyond is smaller, intimate, horrifying in its simplicity. In the center, a table. On the table, 2 objects. One is a holocron, an ancient data storage device containing what looks like complete schematics for the Stargate network, including protocols the ancients never shared, command codes, override functions, the ability to control every gate in multiple galaxies, unlimited power to reshape the galaxy's infrastructure. The second object is simpler, a small vial containing what senses identify as a universal cure, something that could heal any injury, reverse any disease, extend life indefinitely. Both are real, both are functional, both are impossible choices. The ancient voices speak through the chamber. You may take one, only one, the knowledge to reshape the galaxy's future, giving lesser races the tools to advance beyond their current limitations, to fix what we left broken, to control the network we abandoned, or the cure, saving one life completely, healing one person perfectly, but leaving the galaxy unchanged. Choose. Prove your wisdom by deciding which suffering matters more. The trap is elegant, brutal, perfect. You watch Yoda study both objects with an expression that cycles through calculation, grief, and something that might be admiration for the cruelty of the test, because there is no right answer. Save one person, and millions remain trapped in suffering the ancients created. Save millions, and condemn the one who could be healed to preventable death. Yoda's hand hovers over the holocron first. You see him imagine it, taking that knowledge back to destiny, giving Rush and the scientists the ability to control their fate, to navigate home, to fix what the ancients broke, to make this galaxy's inhabitants something other than children playing with weapons they don't understand. The temptation is visible on his face, real. Then his hand moves to the cure. You see that calculation too. One life saved, completely, perfectly. No more suffering for that individual. But the galaxy remains broken. The gates remain tools without wisdom, and everyone else continues to struggle through darkness the ancients left behind. His hand trembles over the vial. The Jedi would choose the many, Yoda says quietly, and his voice cracks. Would sacrifice the one to save the galaxy. Would call it wisdom. Would call it necessary, and be wrong. Because
that logic leads to justifying any atrocity. If enough people benefit, leads to becoming exactly what we fought against. His hand shifts back to the holocron. The ancients would choose knowledge, would say lesser races need guidance, need control, need the wisdom they themselves abandoned, and be wrong. Because that is supremacy dressed as service, is power hoarded by those who deem themselves worthy of deciding for others. His hand falls to his side, touches neither object, and the chamber goes silent. Choose you must. The ancient voices demand. This is the trial. Wisdom means making the hard choice, accepting the cost, proving you understand. Yoda cuts them off with a gesture that makes the light itself flicker. No, he says, and the word carries weight that cracks crystal. Understand, I do. Understand perfectly. The trap, the false dilemma. The test designed by those who never learned what wisdom truly means. You offer two choices, both poisoned, both built on assumption that someone must lose for others to win. That suffering must be allocated like resources. That wisdom is choosing which pain to inflict. He turns to face the chamber's ceiling, addressing the watching ancients directly. This is why you failed, why ascension became abandonment. Because saw every problem as choice between lesser evils, never saw the third path. The ancient voices rise in confusion. There is no third path. The parameters are clear, one or the other, knowledge or healing, many or one. This is reality. This is wisdom, accepting limitations and choosing anyway. Yoda's laugh is bitter, harsh, completely unlike anything you've heard from him before. Limitations you created, parameters you defined, reality you shaped and then claimed was inevitable. The third path is refusing the test, is recognizing that some choices should not be made. That wisdom is sometimes knowing when to walk away, when to say no to power, when to choose neither, because both perpetuate the cycle you claim to judge. He turns toward the door, takes a step. The chamber shudders, warning, threat. Refuse the trial, and you fail. The ancients warn. Prove yourself unworthy. Condemn your teachings to be labeled contamination. Doom those who would learn from you too. Yoda stops, looks back at the table, at the two impossible choices, at the trap built by beings who thought themselves wise enough to judge wisdom, then fail. I do, he says simply. Better to fail honestly than succeed by perpetuating your mistakes. Better to be judged unworthy than prove worthy by your corrupted standards. Better to teach that some choices are wrong regardless of outcome than demonstrate that all choices are acceptable if justified properly. He walks through the door. It slams shut behind him. with a sound like thunder. The chamber erupts in chaos, lights flashing, alarms screaming, the sphere in the center pulsing with rage or confusion, or something that transcends both. You expect destruction, expect the facility to tear itself apart, expect the ancients to punish this defiance with annihilation. Instead, the second door's light fades from warning red to something softer, gold, almost approving. The ancient voices return, but different now, quieter, uncertain. No one has ever refused before, they say. All who entered chose, accepted the parameters, demonstrated their ability to make hard decisions. You rejected the premise, denied our authority to define wisdom. Yoda stands before the third door marked transcendence, and his expression is unreadable. Because your authority is false, he says, built on abandonment and maintained through judgment of those forced to clean up your mistakes. True wisdom is not making hard choices efficiently, is recognizing when the choice itself is the problem, when the game is rigged, when playing by the rules perpetuates the system that created the suffering. He places one hand on the third door, and it doesn't open, doesn't respond, just sits there, inert. This trial, know what it is, I do, will offer transcendence, will show me how to ascend, how to shed this failing body and achieve enlightenment, how to become like you, powerful, eternal, separate from the pain of existence. The ancient voices confirm it. Yes, the final trial is simple. Choose transcendence, or choose limitation. Become more than you are, or remain bound by flesh and time and death. Prove you understand the ultimate wisdom, that evolution beyond physical form is the goal all beings should aspire to, that those who reject this path are lesser, that we were right to ascend and leave the physical realm to those unworthy of joining us. The door begins to open. Through it, you see light, pure, painless, eternal, the promise of existence without suffering, without age, without the weight of watching everyone you love die while you continue, without the burden of being Yoda, ancient, tired, haunted by failures that can never be undone. You watch his hand tremble on the door, watch him stare into that light, with longing so profound it makes your chest ache. He could end it, all of it, the pain, the regret, the slow death of a body, too old to continue, could achieve what every Jedi dreams of, becoming one with the Force completely, eternally, without the limitations of flesh, could ascend, could join the ancients in their eternal detachment, could finally rest. The temptation is visible in every line of his face, real, overwhelming, and you realize this trial is crueler than the others, because it offers exactly what Yoda wants most, what he's earned after 900 years of service, what he's denied himself again and again, because duty demanded he remain. The door opens wider, the light intensifies, and you hold your breath, wondering if this is where the old master finally chooses himself over the galaxy that has taken everything from him. Yoda closes his eyes, takes one deep breath, and steps back from the door. No, he says, and the word sounds like it costs him everything. Refuse again. I do. Not because transcendence is wrong, not because enlightenment should be rejected, but because the way you offer it is poisoned. Transcendence that requires abandoning responsibility is escape. Enlightenment that demands detachment from suffering is not wisdom, is cowardice, is choosing personal peace over continued service.
The Jedi who become one with the Force do so after death, after their service is complete, after they can no longer help. You offer transcendence as reward, as goal, as proof of worthiness, and teach generations that the ultimate achievement is leaving, is checking out, is deciding that enough is enough, and walking away from those still struggling. The door slams shut, the light dies, the chamber goes dark except for the central sphere, which now glows with something that might be approval, or horror, or recognition that their final judgment just backfired. The ancient voices, when they return, sound shaken. 3 trials, 3 refusals. You have proven nothing, demonstrated no wisdom, shown no power, rejected every test we designed, and yet the sphere's light shifts, becomes warmer, more alive, and yet you have taught us more in refusal than any who succeeded by our rules ever could. You have shown that our trials were not tests of wisdom, but reinforcement of our own failures, that we designed judgment to validate abandonment rather than challenge it, that for 10,000 years we have been testing others by standards we ourselves never met. The facility shudders, the walls begin to fade, becoming translucent. Through them, you see destiny in orbit above. See Colonel Young and the crew watching helplessly. See the galaxy beyond, billions of stars connected by gates the ancients built and then left orphaned. The ancient voices speak one final time, and they sound tired now. Ancient in a way that has nothing to do with years and everything to do with weight. Go, teach. We will not interfere. Whether your wisdom saves or dooms this galaxy, we will watch. We will learn. And perhaps we will understand what we should have learned before we ascended. That sometimes the hardest choice is choosing to remain, to stay present, to keep serving even when transcendence beckons. You have passed no trials, but you have taught the judges. That perhaps is wisdom we never considered. The chamber dissolves. You're back on destiny. Yoda collapses, and you catch him before he hits the deck, feeling how light he is, how fragile, how close to the edge of death. But he's smiling, actually smiling. Worth it, he whispers, to show gods their own reflection, to make the powerful question their power. Worth it, his eyes close, his breathing steadies, and you realize the trials are over, but the real test is just beginning.